The heart of Oklahoma, a land of rolling plains and vast blue skies, was an unlikely setting for a budding romance. The landscape, with its endless horizons and serene beauty, seemed to stretch on forever, offering a sense of freedom and possibility. It was here, amidst the natural splendor and the hum of everyday life, that two individuals, Jenny and Liam, would find their paths crossing in the most unexpected of ways. Yet, amidst the sprawling fields and bustling city life, two souls, Jenny and Liam, found each other in the digital ether of a dating app. In a world where connections are often fleeting and superficial, their encounter was a breath of fresh air. They were both searching for something real, something that could transcend the screens and pixels that had become so integral to modern romance.
I swiped right on Liam's profile. His picture stood out to me immediately. There was something about his smile, a warmth that seemed to radiate through the screen. His bio mentioned his love for hiking and exploring new places, which resonated with my own adventurous spirit. He had such kind eyes and a shared passion for the outdoors. It was rare to find someone who appreciated nature as much as I did, and I felt an instant connection. I couldn't help but imagine the adventures we could have together, exploring the hidden gems of Oklahoma and beyond.
Jenny, a spirited redhead with a quick wit and a love for adventure, had been drawn to Liam's profile. Her friends often teased her about her endless energy and her knack for finding the most breathtaking hiking trails. But it was this very zest for life that made her so captivating. She was always on the lookout for the next great adventure, and Liam seemed like the perfect partner to join her on that journey.
And I was equally captivated by Jenny's infectious energy and that breathtaking vista from her recent hike. Her profile was filled with pictures of her conquering mountains and exploring lush forests. It was clear that she was someone who lived life to the fullest, and I couldn't wait to get to know her better.
Their initial messages were filled with nervous laughter, shared interests, and a mutual desire to escape the confines of their screens and into the tangible world. They talked about their favorite hiking spots, their dreams of traveling the world, and their love for the simple pleasures in life. Each message brought them closer, building a foundation of trust and understanding. Living in the same city, their shared love for nature became a natural starting point, a common ground upon which to build their fledgling connection. They decided to meet in person, choosing a local park as the setting for their first date. It was a place where they could be themselves, surrounded by the beauty of the natural world that they both cherished.
Our first date was a picnic lunch overlooking a serene lake. I remember feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness as I packed the basket with our favorite snacks. When I saw Liam waiting by the water, all my worries melted away. He greeted me with that same warm smile that had first caught my attention. We spent hours lost in conversation, and any initial awkwardness just melted away under the warmth of the Oklahoma sun. We talked about everything from our childhood memories to our hopes for the future. It felt like we had known each other for years, and I couldn't help but feel that this was the start of something truly special.
2 weeks flew by in a whirlwind of coffee dates, movie nights, and stolen kisses. Each moment spent together only deepened their connection. They discovered new favorite cafes, shared their love for classic films, and found joy in the simple act of being in each other's company. Each encounter deepened their bond, their laughter echoing through the streets and parks of their city. They became inseparable, finding comfort and joy in each other's presence. Their friends and family noticed the change, seeing how happy and content they were together. They were young, hopeful, and oblivious to the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their newfound happiness. They believed that their love could conquer anything, that their bond was unbreakable. But life has a way of testing even the strongest of connections, and they were about to face a challenge that would change everything. A darkness that awaited them in the shadows of Parallel Forest. This forest, with its twisted trees and eerie silence, held secrets that would test their love and their courage. As they ventured into the unknown, they would have to rely on each other more than ever before, facing their fears and discovering the true strength of their bond. Nestled on the outskirts of Lawton, shrouded in local legends and whispered tales, lay Parallel Forest, a sprawling woodland teeming with ancient oaks and whispering pines. It was a place that held a strange allure, a dichotomy of serene beauty and unsettling mystery.
I suggested Parallel Forest for our next date. I mean, it's got these winding trails and breathtaking views.
Jenny, always eager for an adventure, had readily agreed, her heart quickening at the prospect of exploring a new path alongside Liam. The morning of their hike dawned bright and clear, the Oklahoma sky a vibrant canvas of azure blue.
We packed our backpacks with water bottles, trail mix, and a checkered blanket. The excitement was just crackling between us.
The drive to Parallel Forest was filled with the strums of their favorite songs, their voices blending in off-key harmonies that spoke of youthful exuberance and budding love. As they pulled into the near-empty parking lot, the forest stood before them, a wall of green majesty bathed in dappled sunlight. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, a welcome change from the city's exhaust fumes. Hand in hand, they embarked on their journey, stepping onto the well-worn path that snaked its way into the heart of Parallel Forest. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and earth, a refreshing change from the hustle and bustle of their daily lives. Each step they took seemed to carry them further away from their worries, deeper into a world where time moved at its own pace. The trail was alive with the sounds of nature, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves beneath their feet, and the occasional woodpecker hammering at a distant tree trunk. The symphony of the forest was both soothing and invigorating, a reminder of the simple joys that life had to offer. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, casting dancing patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. The interplay of light and shadow created a magical atmosphere, as if the forest itself was alive and breathing, sharing its secrets with those who ventured within.
Liam, look at that! The excitement in Jenny's voice was palpable, her eyes wide with wonder as she pointed to a cluster of vibrant mushrooms growing at the base of an ancient tree. What kind of plant is this? She knelt down, her fingers gently brushing the delicate leaves of a plant she had never seen before.
Oh, that's a wild columbine. Liam's voice was filled with a quiet confidence, his knowledge of the forest evident in the way he spoke. They're pretty common around here. He smiled, watching as Jenny's curiosity blossomed with each new discovery.
Their initial steps were filled with lighthearted banter, their laughter echoing through the trees as they shared stories, dreams, and stolen glances. The forest seemed to amplify their joy, each laugh and whisper blending seamlessly with the natural sounds around them. Liam, ever the gentleman, pointed out interesting flora and fauna, sharing his knowledge of the local ecosystem with a quiet enthusiasm that made Jenny's heart flutter. His passion for nature was infectious, and she found herself hanging on his every word, eager to learn more.
I kept peppering him with questions. Jenny's voice was filled with a mix of curiosity and admiration, her eyes shining with excitement. My curiosity was as boundless as the sky above. She looked up, the canopy of leaves above her creating a patchwork of light and shadow that seemed to stretch on forever.
They paused often, capturing the beauty of their surroundings with their phones, their fingers brushing as they scrolled through the images. Each photo was a testament to the magic of the forest, a moment frozen in time that they could revisit whenever they wished, their smiles mirroring the joy reflected in their eyes. The connection between them was palpable, a silent understanding that needed no words. Time seemed to melt away, each moment stretching into an eternity of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and the comforting silence of two souls walking in comfortable companionship. The forest, with its ancient trees and hidden wonders, became a backdrop to their blossoming relationship, a place where they could be themselves, free from the constraints of the outside world. The forest, for all its whispered tales and ominous reputation, felt welcoming, a verdant sanctuary where love blossomed under the watchful gaze of ancient trees. Each step they took seemed to be guided by the spirits of the forest, leading them deeper into its heart. They were lost, not in the literal sense, but in the intoxicating embrace of their newfound connection, oblivious to the subtle shift in the atmosphere, the subtle cues that whispered of the forest's true nature. The shadows grew longer, the air cooler, but they remained wrapped in their own world, unaware of the changes around them. They found a fallen log and sat down, the rough bark pressing against their backs as they leaned into each other. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the only sounds the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of nature, they shared a kiss, a promise of more adventures to come. The forest, with its ancient wisdom, seemed to bless their union, a silent witness to their love. As they made their way back to the edge of the forest, hand in hand, they knew that this was just the beginning. The forest had given them a gift, a day filled with laughter, sunlight, and the promise of many more to come. The air, once alive with birdsong and the rustling of leaves, grew strangely still. The playful banter that had filled their journey faded, replaced by an unsettling silence, broken only by the crunch of their footsteps on the now unfamiliar path. The trail, once a clear path through the undergrowth, had become less defined, almost disappearing at times beneath a carpet of fallen leaves and tangled vines.
Jenny, I think we might be a bit off track.
Liam, usually sure-footed and confident, found himself stumbling, his brow furrowed in concentration as he consulted the trail map, now creased and damp with nervous sweat. A strange unease settled over them, a creeping awareness that the playful, welcoming forest of moments ago had taken on a darker, more watchful presence. The sunlight, once dappling playfully through the leaves, now seemed dimmer, as if the canopy above had grown denser, swallowing the light.
Are you sure we're still on the right track?
Jenny shivered despite the warmth of the day, a primal fear prickling at the edges of her joy.
Just up ahead. I'm sure it's just around the corner.
But his words rang hollow, even to his own ears, as the forest seemed to close in around them. The trees pressing closer, their branches like skeletal fingers, reaching out to bar their way. The anticipated bend in the path, their beacon of hope, led not to a familiar landmark, but to a dead end, a wall of impenetrable thicket, twisted and gnarled, as if guarding a dark secret. The trail, their lifeline through the heart of parallel forest, had vanished.
Panic, sharp and cold, seized my chest, constricting my breath.
Liam, his face a mask of disbelief, cursed under his breath, his eyes frantically searching the forest floor for any sign of the path.
This can't be right.
He muttered, his voice tight with a fear he couldn't conceal.
The map showed a clear path.
They retraced their steps, their initial panic giving way to a desperate hope that they had simply missed a turn, a subtle fork in the path obscured by fallen leaves or a trick of the shifting light. But each step back only deepened their sense of disorientation. The trees, once familiar landmarks, now seemed to mock them with their sameness, their gnarled branches twisting into grotesque shapes that seemed to shift and leer as they passed. The sun, now hidden behind a gathering veil of clouds, cast the forest in an unsettling twilight, blurring the edges of their vision, amplifying the sounds of their own ragged breaths and the frantic beating of their hearts. They were lost, truly lost, swallowed whole by the heart of parallel forest. The ground beneath Liam's feet gave way, without warning, without a sound. One moment he was beside Jenny, their fingers intertwined. The next he was gone, swallowed whole by the earth in a silent, terrifying gulp. Jenny watched in horror, her scream dying in her throat, as Liam disappeared into the gaping maw that had opened up beneath him. The earth seemed to sigh, the edges of the sinkhole crumbling inward, as if the forest itself was drawing breath, savoring its sudden grisly feast.
Liam!
Jenny screamed, her voice raw with terror, echoing unanswered through the silent trees. She scrambled to the edge of the abyss, her eyes straining to pierce the impenetrable darkness that had swallowed him. The air was thick with the musty smell of damp earth and something else. Something faintly metallic and chillingly unfamiliar.
Liam, can you hear me?
She cried, her voice cracking with desperation. Silence. Only the whisper of the wind through the trees answered her, a mournful sigh that seemed to mock her terror. The sinkhole yawned before her, a dark and silent testament to the forest's hunger, a grim reminder of the fragility of life in the face of nature's raw and indifferent power. Panic, raw and primal, surged through Jenny. Her mind, still reeling from the shock of Liam's sudden disappearance, clung to the one lifeline she could grasp, her phone. Fumbling in her pocket, her fingers closed around the familiar shape, her heart leaping with a hope as fragile as a dry leaf in a hurricane. But the forest, it seemed, had other plans. Raising the phone, her heart sank as the screen remained stubbornly blank, the signal bars empty, mocking her desperate need for connection.
She moved frantically, desperately seeking a sliver of reception. a single bar that could connect her to the world outside the suffocating embrace of the forest.
But the forest held its silence, swallowing her pleas for help, her frantic cries for Liam, her own rising terror. The trees, once majestic and awe-inspiring, now loomed over her, silent sentinels guarding the secrets of the earth that had swallowed him whole. Despair, cold and heavy, settled on her shoulders, a crushing weight that threatened to drag her down into the darkness with him. The forest had taken Liam, and now, it seemed, it was closing in on her, its silence a suffocating shroud, its shadows reaching out like grasping claws. She was alone, utterly alone, with only the whispers of the wind and the growing certainty that she was hopelessly, terrifyingly lost. The sun, as if sensing her despair, began its final descent, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and bruised violet. The colors bled into each other, creating a surreal canvas that seemed almost too beautiful for the moment. It was as if nature itself was trying to offer a final, fleeting moment of beauty before the encroaching darkness took over. Shadows stretched, long and distorted, transforming familiar shapes into grotesque phantoms lurking at the edge of her vision. Each tree, once a symbol of life and growth, now seemed to twist and contort into menacing figures, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to ensnare her.
Oh God, what is happening? This can't be real. It just can't be.
The temperature, pleasant only moments ago, plummeted, the sudden chill biting into her skin like icy needles. Her breath became visible, each exhale a small cloud of mist that quickly dissipated into the cold air. A chilling breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and decay. The once vibrant forest floor was now a carpet of rotting leaves, their decay a stark reminder of the cycle of life and death. Twilight, that liminal space between day and night, settled upon the forest, casting an eerie pall over the already unsettling landscape. The transition from light to dark seemed to stretch on forever, each second dragging her deeper into a world of shadows and uncertainty. The forest, once a place of beauty and wonder, had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, a playground for unseen terrors that lurked just beyond the reach of her vision. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow, searching for the source of the sound. Fear, cold and sharp, tightened its grip on Jenny's chest, each ragged breath a shallow victory against the rising tide of panic. Her heart pounded in her chest, a relentless drumbeat that echoed in her ears, drowning out the sounds of the forest. Each breath she took felt like a battle, her lungs straining to draw in the frigid air. The weight of her fear was almost suffocating, pressing down on her like a physical force.
Liam, where are you? Please answer me.
The forest, no longer a place of beauty and wonder, transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, a playground for unseen terrors that lurked just beyond the reach of her vision. The path ahead was shrouded in fog, each step forward feeling like a descent into the unknown. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a jolt of adrenaline through her, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow, searching for the source of the sound, the phantom menace that seemed to stalk her every move. The forest was alive with unseen eyes, watching her, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow, searching for the source of the sound, the phantom menace that seemed to stalk her every move. The forest was alive with unseen eyes, watching her, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Her eyes darted from shadow to shadow, searching for the source of the sound, the phantom menace that seemed to stalk her every move. The forest was alive with unseen eyes, watching her, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The shadows seemed to move and shift, taking on forms that were both familiar and alien. Each step she took felt like a gamble, the ground beneath her feet, uncertain and treacherous.
This can't be real. It just can't be. Liam, please, where are you?
The weight of Liam's absence pressed down on her, a heavy cloak of guilt and terror. She had promised him a fun date and escape from the mundane. Now, as darkness descended, she feared she had led him to his doom. She had promised him a fun date, an escape from the mundane. They had walked hand in hand, laughing and enjoying the beauty of the forest, unaware of the darkness that lurked just beyond the horizon. Now, as darkness descended, she feared she had led him to his doom. The forest, once a place of beauty and wonder, had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, a playground for unseen terrors that lurked just beyond the reach of her vision. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow, searching for the source of the sound, the phantom menace that seemed to stalk her every move. The forest floor, uneven and treacherous in the fading light, became a minefield of hidden roots and unseen depressions. Jenny stumbled blindly forward, her arms outstretched, her hands brushing against rough bark and prickly undergrowth.
I need to find him. I need to find Liam.
Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a jolt of adrenaline through her, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The forest, no longer content with whispers and shadows, unleashed a symphony of unsettling sounds. Insects buzzed with an almost frantic urgency, their tiny wings beating against the silence like 1,000 tiny drums.
What's out there? What is that noise?
Something large and unseen crashed through the undergrowth, its passage marked by the snapping of branches and the guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through the very air itself. Panic, raw and primal, threatened to consume her, urging her to run, to flee the unseen terrors that surrounded her. But where could she run? The forest, a labyrinth of shadows and unseen dangers, offered no escape, no sanctuary from the growing darkness that pressed in on all sides.
I can't stay here. I have to keep moving.
She stumbled on, each step a testament to her dwindling hope, her mind conjuring images of Liam swallowed by the earth, his cries for help swallowed by the indifferent forest. A scream, high-pitched and filled with unimaginable agony, sliced through the darkness, echoing through the trees, bouncing off the silent trunks like a malevolent entity. Jenny froze, her breath catching in her throat, her blood turning to ice in her veins.
No.
It was a human scream, she realized, filled with a raw terror that spoke of unimaginable pain and suffering. The scream cut short as abruptly as it began, left in its wake a silence even more profound, more unsettling than the symphony of forest sounds that had preceded it. Goosebumps erupted on her arms, her skin prickling with a cold dread that seemed to seep in from the shadows themselves.
Who? Who was that?
Someone or something was out there, hidden in the depths of the forest, its cries a chilling testament to the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the seemingly tranquil woods. Fear, now a tangible presence, coiled around her like a serpent, squeezing the air from her lungs, stealing the strength from her limbs.
Liam, the sinkhole, the missing trail, it's all my fault.
Liam, the sinkhole, the missing trail, it all came crashing down on her. The weight of her situation, her isolation, her utter helplessness, threatening to crush her beneath its unbearable weight. A flicker of light, faint and wavering, appeared through the trees ahead. Hope, fragile as a newborn bird, stirred within her. Could it be a house, a road, a sign of civilization in this desolate expanse of darkness and terror?
With renewed determination, she stumbled towards the light, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, her every thought a prayer for rescue, for an end to this nightmare.
The closer she drew, the stronger the light became, illuminating the trees with an unnatural orange glow that flickered and danced as if fueled by an unseen wind. The smell of burning wood reached her, sharp and acrid, mingling with the damp earth and decay of the forest floor. Sounds, too, began to filter through the trees, the murmur of voices, the crackle of flames, the rhythmic thumping that sent a shiver down her spine.
As she pushed through the final barrier of branches, the source of the light and the sounds revealed itself. But the sight that greeted her, far from bringing relief, sent a fresh wave of terror crashing over her, stealing the breath from her lungs and turning her blood to ice.
The forest opened up into a clearing, bathed in the flickering orange light of a massive bonfire. The flames reached towards the sky, licking at the darkness, casting grotesque shadows that danced and writhed along the trunks of the surrounding trees.
Gathered around the fire, a circle of figures, their bodies cloaked in crimson robes, stood in silent observation of the blazing pyre. The robes, identical in their crimson hue, concealed their forms, their faces hidden within the depths of their hoods, lending them an air of otherworldly menace.
An unsettling silence hung in the air, broken only by the crackle of the flames and the rhythmic thumping that seemed to emanate from the heart of the fire itself. Jenny stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, her mind struggling to process the scene before her, her instincts screaming at her to turn and flee back into the relative safety of the darkness.
The flickering light of the fire played tricks on her eyes, transforming the cloaked figures into monstrous phantoms, their shadows stretching towards her like grasping claws. The scent of burning wood, now overpowering, stung her nostrils, mingling with a faint metallic tang that sent a shiver down her spine. It was the same smell, she realized with a growing sense of dread, that she had detected at the edge of the sinkhole where Liam had vanished.
As if sensing her presence, The figures turned in unison, their movements eerily synchronized, their bodies moving with a fluid grace that belied the grotesque nature of their attire. The firelight danced across their crimson hoods, momentarily illuminating the depths within, revealing glimpses of shadowed faces, their features obscured by the interplay of light and shadow.
But it was their eyes that held Jenny captive, their gazes piercing the darkness like shards of ice, reflecting the firelight with an unnatural intensity that sent a chill down her spine. They were ancient eyes, she realized, filled with a wisdom, or perhaps a madness, that spoke of centuries spent in the shadows, their gazes heavy with a knowledge that chilled her to the bone.
The silence stretched, taut and heavy, amplifying the crackling of the flames and the frantic beating of her own heart. Fear, cold and suffocating, coiled around her, squeezing the air from her lungs, paralyzing her with terror. She had stumbled from one nightmare into another, she realized, trading the isolation of the dark forest for the chilling presence of these crimson-clad figures.
But what were they? What dark ritual had she stumbled upon in the heart of this god-forsaken forest?
One of the figures, taller than the others, took a step forward, breaking the circle, his crimson robes swirling around him like pools of blood in the flickering firelight. He reached up, his gloved hand disappearing into the depths of his hood. For a moment, he stood there, silhouetted against the inferno behind him, the embodiment of every nightmare creature that had ever haunted the darkest recesses of her mind. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he lowered his hood, revealing the face beneath.
Liam?
It was a face she knew, a face that had haunted her thoughts, her dreams for what felt like an eternity. But his features, normally so kind, so gentle, were twisted into a grotesque parody of their former selves. His eyes, once filled with warmth and laughter, now burned with an unholy fire, reflecting the flames with a terrifying intensity. And his smile, the smile that had made her heart skip a beat, that had promised safety, companionship, love, that smile was now a chilling leer, a grotesque distortion of everything she had ever found comforting, everything she had ever believed in.
Hello, Jenny, I've been expecting you.
Liam, what's going on? What is this place?
But even as she spoke, a chilling certainty settled over her, cold and heavy as a shroud. This was not the Liam she knew, the man who had held her hand, who had made her laugh, who had promised her a day of adventure and escape. The man before her, cloaked in crimson, his eyes burning with an unholy light, was a stranger, a monster wearing the skin of the man she had loved.
This place, my dear Jenny, is where your journey ends.
His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken menace, their meaning as clear as the terror that now gripped her heart. She had walked into a trap, she realized, lured here by the man she had trusted, the man who had promised her love and security. But the love had been a lie, the security an illusion. The man she thought she knew had been a mask, a carefully crafted persona designed to lure her into this nightmare.
You brought me here. For them?
Liam's twisted smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed to gleam unnaturally in the firelight.
They have great plans for you, Jenny. Plans older than these trees, older than time itself.
He stepped closer, his crimson robes brushing against her, the scent of burning wood and something else, something ancient and evil, clinging to him like a shroud.
They hunger, you see. They hunger for innocence, for purity, for a soul untouched by the darkness that consumes this world. And you, my dear Jenny, are the perfect offering.
Jenny recoiled from his touch, his words piercing her heart like shards of ice. The clearing, the fire, the crimson-clad figures, all of it swam before her eyes, a grotesque tableau of her worst nightmares come to life. Liam, her Liam, had betrayed her, sacrificed her to appease the hunger of these things. Adrenaline, raw and potent, surged through Jenny's veins, snapping her out of her horrified paralysis. She didn't waste time screaming, didn't waste breath pleading for reason or mercy from these monsters. She turned, her legs pumping, and ran. Branches whipped at her face, tore at her clothes, but she didn't slow down. The darkness, once so terrifying, was now her only ally, her only shield against the nightmare unfolding behind her. Behind her, the cultists' laughter echoed through the trees, a chilling symphony of amusement and malice.
Their voices, twisted and inhuman, seemed to come from all directions at once, surrounding me, herding me deeper into the heart of the forest. I didn't dare look back, didn't dare slow down, not even for a second.
Liam's betrayal, the chilling realization of his true nature, fueled her flight. The forest floor, uneven and treacherous, rose up to meet her, sending her sprawling, but she scrambled back to her feet, her lungs burning, her heart pounding a frantic tattoo against her ribs. Run, just keep running. The forest seemed to conspire against her, the trees closing in, their branches reaching out like grasping claws, eager to snag her clothes, to trip her, to deliver her back into the clutches of the crimson-clad figures. The shadows, elongated and distorted in the darkness, danced around her, taking on monstrous shapes that seemed to mock her terror. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a jolt of fear through her, her mind conjuring images of her pursuers closing in, their crimson robes like splashes of blood against the darkness.
The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, now carried a new, more sinister odor, a cloying sweetness that spoke of ancient rituals and unspeakable sacrifices. I pushed on, my breath ragged, my legs screaming for respite. But there was no time to rest, no sanctuary to be found in this heart of darkness.
The forest, once a place of beauty and wonder, had become a hunting ground, and she, the prey. The memory of Liam's betrayal, the chilling realization that the man she had loved was a monster in disguise, fueled her flight. She had to escape. She had to survive. For Liam had taken everything else from her, her trust, her love, her innocence. He wouldn't take her life as well. She burst from the trees, her lungs burning, her vision blurred with tears and exhaustion. But the sight that greeted her stole the breath from her lungs, plunged her back into the icy grip of terror. The clearing, the fire, the crimson-clad figures. They stood exactly as she had left them, their circle unbroken, their faces hidden within the depths of their hoods. The fire now burning lower, cast grotesque shadows that danced and writhed around them, transforming them into a tableau of demons drawn from the depths of hell.
They had been waiting for me. They had known I would run, known I would return to this place of nightmares. The forest, their playground, their domain, offered no escape. A cold despair settled over me, heavy and suffocating as a shroud. I was trapped, a fly caught in a spider's web, my every movement only tightening the silken strands that bound me.
Welcome back, Jenny. We knew you would return. The forest belongs to us.
She was surrounded, the circle of fire closing in, the cultists' faces hidden, but their intentions clear. The nightmare had only just begun. Liam stepped forward, his crimson robes swirling around him like pools of blood in the flickering firelight. But it was his face, no longer a mask of feigned kindness, that chilled her to the bone. Gone was the warmth, the gentle humor, the love that had shone in his eyes. In their place burned a cold, calculating fire, the fanaticism of a true believer. He moved with a newfound confidence, a predatory grace that spoke of a darkness embraced, a transformation complete.
Welcome back, Jenny. The ritual awaits.
His words, devoid of any trace of the man she had loved, hung in the air, a death knell to all her hopes, all her dreams. Liam was gone, swallowed whole by whatever darkness resided within this cursed forest, and she, the fool who had trusted him, who had loved him, was about to join him in his descent into oblivion. The circle of crimson figures tightened, their shadows stretching towards her like grasping claws. The firelight danced in their eyes, reflecting a chilling mixture of amusement and malice. They were predators, toying with their prey, savoring her terror, her despair. And in that moment, as the flames crackled and hissed, and the shadows danced around her, Jenny understood. There would be no escape from Parallel Forest. This place, this clearing, this circle of fire would be her tomb.
Don't fight it, Jenny. Let the darkness embrace you.
Liam, his features now a grotesque mask of his former self, reached out, his gloved hand brushing her cheek with an almost tender touch. But the touch was cold, devoid of any warmth, any humanity. It was the touch of death. But even as his words washed over her, a spark of defiance ignited within her. She would not surrender. She would not let them win. She would fight, even if it meant her death. For even in death, she would deny them the satisfaction of her fear, her despair. She would meet her end with her spirit unbroken, her heart defiant. Panic lent her speed. She didn't think, didn't strategize. She simply ran. Ducking beneath a low-hanging branch, she veered sharply away from the firelight, plunging headlong into the suffocating embrace of the forest. Trees loomed before her, dark and menacing, their branches reaching out like grasping claws. The forest floor, uneven and treacherous, became a minefield of hidden roots and unseen depressions.
I can't slow down, can't afford to hesitate.
But she didn't slow down, couldn't afford to hesitate. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a jolt of adrenaline through her, fueling her desperate flight. Behind her, the cultists' laughter echoed through the trees, a chilling symphony of amusement and malice. They were toying with her, she realized, herding her deeper into the heart of their domain. But she clung to a sliver of hope, a desperate gamble that the very darkness that terrified her might also offer her a chance to escape. Thorns tore at her clothes, leaving stinging scratches on her skin. Branches whipped back, striking her face, her arms, but she pushed onward, ignoring the pain, driven by a primal instinct to survive. The forest floor, uneven and treacherous, rose up to meet her, sending her sprawling.
I can't stop now.
She tasted dirt, felt the sharp bite of stones against her palms, but she scrambled back to her feet, her lungs burning, her heart pounding, a frantic tattoo against her ribs. The darkness was absolute, swallowing the moonlight, the starlight, leaving her in a void where every shadow seemed to writhe with unseen menace.
I won't be their victim. I won't surrender.
Her breath hitched in her throat, each gasp a shallow victory against the suffocating fear that threatened to consume her. But through the terror, a new resolve began to solidify within her. She would not be their victim. She would not surrender to the darkness. She would fight, claw, scratch her way back to the light, even if it cost her everything. The sounds of pursuit were relentless, the cracking of twigs, the rustle of leaves, the guttural chanting of the cultists, their voices warped and distorted by the darkness, seeming to come from all directions at once. They were close, she could feel it, their presence a palpable weight pressing down on her, stealing the air from her lungs, making her every heartbeat a deafening roar in her ears.
They're right behind me.
Fear, cold and sharp, threatened to paralyze her, but she couldn't stop, couldn't surrender to the terror that threatened to consume her. She thought of Liam, his betrayal, the chilling transformation she had witnessed in his eyes, and a surge of anger, hot and fierce, coursed through her veins.
They took everything from me, but they won't break me.
They had taken everything from her, her love, her trust, her sense of safety, but they wouldn't break her. She would not let them. And then she saw it, a light, faint, flickering, like a distant star struggling to pierce the suffocating darkness. Hope, fragile as a newborn bird, stirred within her. She changed direction, veering towards the light, her legs screaming in protest, her lungs burning with exhaustion.
Just a little further, I can make it.
But the light beckoned, a beacon of promise in the overwhelming darkness. As she drew closer, the light grew stronger, revealing the silhouette of trees against a backdrop of pale moonlight, a clearing, perhaps, or a road.
Please, let this be the way out.
She stumbled towards it, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, her every thought a prayer for salvation, for an end to this nightmare. But as she broke through the final barrier of trees, the light illuminating the clearing ahead, a cold dread washed over her, stealing the breath from her lungs, turning her blood to ice.
The light, she realized with a sickening lurch in her stomach, wasn't the moon. It was the faint ethereal glow emanating from the depths of the sinkhole, the gaping maw that had swallowed Liam. She stood at the edge of the abyss, the ground sloping treacherously downward, the air thick with the musty smell of damp earth and something else, something ancient and unhallowed. Despair threatened to consume her, to drag her down into the darkness with Liam. What was the point of running? The forest, this cursed place, offered no escape. But even as she teetered on the brink of surrender, something stopped her. Something in the air, a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a prickling sensation on the back of her neck. She was not alone. The hair on the back of Jenny's neck stood on end, a cold, prickling sensation, as if unseen eyes were upon her, sent shivers down her spine. She strained to see through the darkness, her breath catching in her throat as her gaze fell upon a solitary figure standing at the very edge of the abyss. He stood with his back to her, his silhouette a stark outline against the ethereal glow emanating from the depths of the sinkhole. Even from this distance, she could sense a palpable aura of power radiating from him, a darkness that both terrified and inexplicably drew her in. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't tear her gaze away from the figure before her. Hope, fragile and flickering, sparked in her chest. Could it be? No, it couldn't be. Could it? The figure shifted slightly, and a cold dread washed over her, extinguishing the fledgling hope as quickly as it had ignited. She recognized the stance, the way he held his head, the unnatural stillness of his body. It was Liam. But not the Liam she knew. This Liam was different, changed, radiating a power that chilled her to the bone.
Slowly, deliberately, the figure turned. The ethereal glow from the sinkhole illuminated his features, revealing Liam in all his terrifying glory. He was clad in the crimson robes of the cult, the fabric clinging to his lean frame, the color a stark contrast against the pale skin of his face. But it was his eyes that held her captive, reflecting the unearthly light from the sinkhole with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Gone was the warmth, the kindness, the love she had seen in them before. In their place burned an unholy fire, a chilling awareness that spoke of ancient secrets and unimaginable power.
Liam? Her voice, when she finally found it, was a choked whisper, barely audible above the whisper of the wind through the trees, and the distant chanting that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself.
A slow, cruel smile spread across Liam's face, twisting his features into a grotesque parody of the man she had loved. "Hello, Jenny," he said, his voice a hollow echo of its former self, cold and devoid of any emotion she recognized.
As if summoned by Liam's words, a low, guttural chanting rose from the depths of the sinkhole. The sound sent chills down Jenny's spine, a primal fear gripping her heart in its icy claws. It wasn't a language she recognized, not human, not entirely. The words were ancient, guttural, laced with a power that seemed to vibrate in the very air around her, making her teeth ache and her bones thrum with a resonant dread. The earth beneath her feet trembled, a low, rhythmic pulse that seemed to synchronize with The chanting below. The trees surrounding the clearing swayed in unison, their branches twisting and contorting as if in answer to some unseen force. Jenny stumbled backward, her gaze darting from Liam's chilly calm face to the gaping maw of the sinkhole, her mind struggling to grasp the reality of what she was witnessing. It was as if the forest itself was awakening, responding to the ancient call of whatever lurked below.
What is this place? What have you done?
Jenny stammered, her voice barely a whisper above the rising chorus of chanting.
I haven't done anything, Jenny. I've merely embraced my destiny, as will you.
Liam's smile widened, devoid of any warmth, any trace of the man she had thought she knew. He took a step towards her, his crimson robes swirling around him like pools of blood in the unearthly light.
Don't you see, Jenny? I was never lost. I was chosen, and so were you.
Confusion warred with terror in Jenny's mind. Chosen? What did he mean? A horrifying thought took root in her mind, sending a shiver down her spine.
The dating app? It was all a setup?
Liam chuckled, a dry, humorless sound.
You were so eager, Jenny. So eager to find love, to find connection, that you never stopped to question what you were getting yourself into.
His words hit her like a physical blow, stealing the breath from her lungs. He was right. She had been so caught up in their whirlwind romance, so blinded by her own desires, that she had ignored the warning signs, the subtle inconsistencies, the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right.
But why? Why me?
Jenny choked out, her voice raw with betrayal and disbelief.
They need a vessel, a pure soul to house their power, and you, my dear Jenny, fit the bill perfectly.
He paused, his gaze boring into hers, his eyes cold and calculating.
But you have a choice. Join me, become one of us. Embrace the power that awaits below.
Jenny stared at his outstretched hand, her stomach churning with revulsion. Join him? Become one of those things? The very thought sent a shiver down her spine, a primal fear gripping her heart in its icy claws.
Never. I'd rather die.
Liam's smile vanished, replaced by a chilling blankness.
So be it, but death is only the beginning.
The chanting from the sinkhole reached a deafening crescendo, the earth trembling beneath their feet, the air thick with an oppressive, almost tangible darkness.
And then, as if rising from the very bowels of the earth, the crimson-clad figures emerged from the trees, surrounding the clearing, their eyes burning with a malevolent anticipation.
Jenny stood frozen, paralyzed by fear, her gaze darting from Liam's chillingly calm face to the approaching figures, their shadows stretching towards her like grasping claws.
She was trapped, caught between Liam's betrayal and the cult's malevolence, the full weight of her nightmare crashing down upon her.
A scream rose in her throat, a primal cry of terror and despair, but it died before it reached her lips, swallowed by the suffocating darkness that seemed to press in from all sides.
She was going to die here, in this godforsaken forest, surrounded by monsters wearing the faces of men.
And the worst part, the one thought that pierced her heart with an almost unbearable agony, was that Liam, the man who had promised her love and safety, the man she had trusted with her heart, was the architect of her demise. The cultists closed in, their movements eerily synchronized, their crimson robes a sea of blood red in the unearthly glow of the sinkhole.
The chanting reached a fever pitch, the words washing over her in a torrent of ancient power and unholy intent.
And then, as if in a dream, she saw Liam smile, a chilling predatory grin that spoke of a darkness embraced, a soul surrendered to whatever evil dwelled within the heart of Parallel Forest.
She closed her eyes, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek, a silent testament to the love betrayed, the trust shattered, the innocence lost.
Her scream, when it finally came, was a raw, primal sound, a desperate plea for salvation that echoed through the empty spaces between the trees, unanswered, unheard.
The forest, indifferent to her plight, swallowed her whole, her cries for help fading into the symphony of whispers and shadows that danced beneath the uncaring gaze of the moon.
The chanting continued, a rhythmic pulse that seemed to reverberate through the very earth itself, but the forest had fallen silent. The whispers had ceased, the shadows had retreated, leaving behind a silence more terrifying than any scream. The fire at the edge of the clearing burned low, casting flickering shadows that danced and writhed like tortured souls. The crimson-clad figures were gone, vanished back into the darkness from whence they came, their purpose fulfilled, their hunger sated. Only the sinkhole remained, a gaping maw of impenetrable darkness, the air above it shimmering with an unnatural energy, a silent testament to the horrors it had witnessed. The forest held its breath, its secrets buried deep within its ancient roots. Its silence, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of the ordinary. Jenny was gone, her laughter, once a symphony of joy and lightheartedness, now a fading echo in the wind. Years passed, seasons changed. The forest, ever resilient, healed its wounds, the clearing reclaimed by nature's relentless embrace. But the locals whispered tales of Parallel Forest, their voices hushed, their eyes wide with a fear passed down through generations. Hikers, venturing too far off the beaten path, spoke of an unsettling presence, a feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Some claimed to hear whispers carried on the wind, fragments of conversations, snippets of laughter, both filled with an unsettling joy that sent shivers down their spines. And on moonless nights, when the wind howled through the trees like a banshee's wail, they said you could still hear her scream, a high-pitched, blood-curdling shriek echoing through the darkness, a chilling reminder of the young couple who ventured into Parallel Forest and never returned, Jenny and Liam. Their names, once whispered with love and laughter, were now uttered with a mix of pity and dread. Their fate a chilling testament to the ancient evil that lay dormant beneath the surface of the ordinary, waiting to claim unsuspecting souls. Parallel Forest, for all its beauty, held its secrets close, a silent guardian of the darkness that lay at its heart. And in the whispers of the wind, and the rustle of the leaves, and the shadows that danced beneath the trees, their story lived on, a haunting reminder that some paths once taken offer no return.